Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. First episode of 2021. Hope everybody had a great New Year's. I actually had a New Year's party, which was fun. I can tell you we had people of um, all races, religions, income levels. It was just a very, very diverse group of people. And of all the parties I've hosted over the years, I just feel like the energy was just so positive. I mean, people were just so happy to be together and be social, and it was just probably a night I'll never forget. So hope everybody can, if you're not already, go back to being social and being with your friends and family as soon as possible, because it's what we're meant to be doing. Today's guest is actually a friend and a business partner of mine. We're involved in a couple things, but our main focus right now is an e-com store we own together called Proud Patriots, proudpatriots.com. We sell conservative and patriotic collectible items, and we talk about it a little on the show. But when we started that business, I looked at it as just an investment opportunity. Whether it was a Democratic store or a Republican store. I mean, ultimately, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a capitalist. I wouldn't have cared, right? But as everything has gone on the last year in 2020, and just with everything, I've shifted a little more conservative. And I grew up in a really small town, so I grew up kind of like old-fashioned conservative, like religious conservative. And but before I really moved to a bigger city and had different types of friends, and so I've shifted, ever since I've probably been 18. I've been shifting, more left. I would never say I was like liberal, although I lean left on many things. But I just started becoming left on a lot of different topics. So I lean conservative on some things. I lean left. I'm kind of like, I'd say overall, I'm more of a center right. But I'm kind of in a homeless area politically. Like, I don't really identify as Republican. I don't really identify as a liberal. But this year, with the government overreach and just like lockdowns and stuff like that, it's made me more conservative, because I'm just like, man, people need to be able to make their own choices and decide what's best for them and their families. And that's been my viewpoint basically since day one. And the business has just started being like a passion project, and I never thought it would be. A lot of our products are sourced in the United States, so we're creating jobs there. We're sourcing U.S. products, which right and left can agree we need to do more of that. We're creating jobs in the U.S. We're going to be partnering with different charitable organizations. I mean, people love the products, love the collectible items. I mean, we're doing a lot of cool things, and I'm starting to. And again, like I have my own opinions. Like, a lot of conservatives don't agree with me on abortion and drug policy and things like that. But I value living in this country, and I value freedom of speech, and I value that we have the opportunity to start these businesses. And it's just, really fortunate. So, Morgan is my partner in that. We talk a little bit about like how he got started in business, his first business that he started at 15. I asked him how I can improve as a business partner, which is I just put him on the spot with that. So overall, really good conversation. Appreciate you listening to my longer than normal intro on the front end too. Just wanted to kind of share some thoughts, and I'll probably start doing more of these longer intros as well as I expand the guest types. Going into 2021, there's going to be more people that I don't know or know very little, and I'm going to probably ask them more questions and do less talking. So I'm gonna fill it out, but I want to start being very even more so just vocal and opinionated, and sharing my thoughts on conversations that I'm about to have, things that are going on in the world, So if there's not an opportunity to do that on the actual episode, I may do that in a longer intro. So I know you'll enjoy this one. Always cool to learn new things about friends and business partners, which I do in this episode. And like always, greatly appreciate if you can share with your friends and subscribe and rate 5 stars on iTunes.
This is Openly Outspoken with Jeremy Adams, where differing opinions are not only accepted, they're encouraged.
All right, Morgan, we are live. Thanks for popping on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So the most important question I've been dying to ask all day preparing. What is it like to be business partners with me?
Yeah, I think, probably like I would equate it to, like winning the Powerball, not once, but like multiple times, like almost if it was like a daily occurrence. Probably a mix of that and like climbing Mount Everest. That's probably somewhere slightly higher than that.
Like the physical like part, like the achievement of climbing Mount Everest?
No,
or like
just like the grind of climbing it and almost dying every day. Probably that part. But.
Okay. No, I feel that's kind of how I feel about being partners with you too. So we align there. So on a serious note, and I actually asked this to Kevin Harrington too when he was on, like, I can't remember how long ago it was, like 8 or 10 episodes ago or something. I asked him where did he think I could improve as a business partner? Where do you think I could improve as a business partner?
That's a good question. I think one of the things that I value like in our partnership is just being very transparent and I think like authentic. And so I think like that's been like we've probably had a couple of like situations where like we were like working out like the deal terms or whatever. I feel like those were like really pretty easy conversations, and so I think that's a big thing that's like a positive. As far as like where to improve, I think maybe just like getting outside of your comfort zone a little bit, like in the sense that, and this kind of goes a little bit contrary to like one of like I think your core beliefs, but you'll talk a lot about like staying in your genius and kind of like saying like, hey, I'll do this, and then like I won't do this or whatever, but maybe like expanding that sometime or stepping out of it a little bit. But like I really don't have any groundbreaking like, hey, Jeremy, if you did this, you'd be so much better. But,
No, I appreciate you sharing. Is there anything in particular, like the whole genius thing that you're referring to? Because for people that don't know, and Morgan didn't even know I was going to ask him these questions, so this is real authentic conversation that just happens to be available to the world. But I'm a big proponent of just focusing on your strengths and finding smarter, more talented people to handle your weaknesses. So that's what Morgan's referring to on a business level. But do you have anything specific?
No, I think with that, like the one thing is that if of just being careful of not just saying like, hey, this is like I think a good example of and why like you and Max are such good partners. Like you're like you focus on like business development. Max is really like he's like, hey, I'd rather just stay like really like optimizing the media buys and scaling and growing that way. But I think sometimes like when there is a little more interaction, like there might be something that like you think of just because you're not in the day-to-day of that, or like that Max thinks of that he's not in the day-to-day of the biz dev side. So I think almost like it's like, yeah, you want to maybe like stay in your genius 90% of the time, but maybe carve out some time to be in a place where it is a little more uncomfortable just from a like an ease or fulfillment standpoint of of being in that spot. You're like, hey, I really like, I don't love doing this. This isn't the best thing, but like it's good to learn and have that aspect of it.
Okay. That's good feedback. Yeah, I agree. Just having that 30,000 foot view at times can be beneficial. Yeah. It's because sometimes I'll come in and I know so little about a topic, I can actually give a good advice every now and then. That's kind of how it is. Back when I used to be a competitive Madden player,
mm-hmm.
I would play really good people all the time. I was like top 100 in the world on Madden. I had like no life. This is back in the day.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the prime of my
Uh-huh.
my teens. Not hanging out with girls or anything. It was being good at Madden. But
Focusing on Madden. Yeah.
the games of like other really high ranked people, because they would rank you up against other high ranked people, were always super competitive. But when I would play noobs, they were so bad they were actually good, because they were playing a style that like I couldn't like even adapt to.
Kind of prepare for. Yeah.
Yeah, like they just would play like real football and run like 3 runs up the middle, and like I couldn't. I'm normally used to defending glitch plays and stuff. Like it was unreal. It gave me a lot of problems. So they had that. I don't know if it's a great analogy, but all right. So one more business question, and you didn't know I was going to ask this either, and this is the most important question. For those that don't know, I work. My little brother's involved in our business as well. Who's a better brother to work with, me or Christopher?
Yeah, I think you've definitely paid me a lot to come on this podcast, so I'd have to say you. But and also I think you probably had more to do with all the awesome Cubs gear that I got for Christmas. So that's definitely gonna put you ahead of Christopher.
All right, so that's what I like to hear. All right, cool. Yeah, we got Morgan as a thank you for being a great business partner gift. We got you like a bunch of Cubs shirts, hoodies, polos, and 2 custom jerseys that you should be getting this week.
Yeah, and some and the pajamas too. You can't get the Cubs Christmas pajamas.
And the Santa hat.
Yeah, and the Santa hat.
Okay. So enough about our partnership, which is random, and I hope people enjoyed that little conversation we just had. If not, that's okay too. When you have your own show, you can just do whatever you want, Morgan.
That's right.
So
yeah.
What are you up to lately? What are you most excited about in your life currently?
Yeah, so I guess from a personal standpoint, we're actually kind of crazy times, and since we're moving houses, which is always fun. But really, in a business standpoint, we really have transformed our business from and it's a little bit similar to like what you and I have talked about with Unicorn, but from going from like a media agency model that we were a couple years ago, getting into selling our own products, having like multiple partnerships, and it was all primarily in the financial space, so like financial publishing and newsletter space. But really excited about expanding outside of that with the stuff that we're doing with you guys on the like politics side. We've got a new podcast that's launching around golf and sports betting that I'm very excited about. So those are kind of the big things heading into 2021 that really like we're focusing on, and I feel like you learn so much by like trial and error of just even partnerships. I think like we've done the same with like you look at like the site that we have and partnered on together, that it's not like a straight line up. So it's like you kind of have these like wins, and then you start to have some losses, and you learn from those and get better and better. So really just kind of taking everything that we've learned over the past couple of years and continuing to like expand and optimize and grow from that standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. You mean like the random $50,000 charge we got from our fulfillment company that we weren't expecting?
Yeah, like realizing that during holidays they just throw a little $50,000 shipping surcharge on. So.
A lot of Christmas bonuses were paid from FedEx,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
With that, no, I mean business has been fun, and I actually have a good connect for you on the golf side. They have this. I actually got bottles with them on New Year's Eve, so you can't say that that's not great networking, getting bottle service. But they have this patented like golf tee. They're based downtown Orlando, but their business is doing really well. I think they're like heavy into the golf space too. I think that'd be a good connection for you.
Yeah, I'd love to connect with them. So.
Yeah, they're like around my age. They're super cool. So I'll make sure you guys get connected. I'm gonna actually, if you see me looking down, I'm like writing notes or So
yeah, that would be great.
Let me make sure I connect you. So I know you got started, and I actually don't know this story about you, and I'm about to find out now, which is good because you got started really young in business at about 15.
Mhm.
Can you share how did that like what made you want to get into business at a young age, and what did you start?
Yeah, so it actually came from my dad had a brokerage firm, actually like futures brokerage firm, and part of that it was like geared towards like individual traders, and so people who would come and learn how to trade the futures market. And one thing with I don't know what like if you know much about futures, but like they trade 24 hours a day, so like that was like a pretty unique thing that like they were trading overnight and overseas, and so like one of the trades that he taught his clients was that at 3:30 in the morning, if all of Europe was moving in one direction, so like let's say like you wake up at 3 in the morning and like the German market's up, the French market's up, the UK market's up, that you would see the US futures start to go up until like right around like 9 o'clock in the morning. And he had these guys and they were saying like, hey, this is a great trade, but like you got to wake up every day and see if everything's aligned. And so they're not going to wake up at 3:30. And kind of jokingly, I would work there in the summer, and I told one of his clients, I was like, well, hey, if you paid me $100, like I'd wake up and check at 3:30 for you, and just give you a call, like if it sets up. And he's like, okay, I'll do that. And one of the other guys said he would too, and the other, anyway, it ended up like 4 or 5 people were like, hey, like if you'll do this, because it was a trade that set up maybe like 3 or 4 times a month, but to take advantage of it, you had to wake up every day at 3:30 and check it. So I started a little business. I called it the Early Bird Alert Service, and I'd wake up every day at 3:30 in the morning, go check the computer. If it was set up, I actually had like a list of phone numbers I would call, and I'd wake them up and say, hey, like there's this alert, like you need to get out of bed, check it, and trade it. And they would do that. And I peaked out, I think like my junior year of high school, we had like 31 people on the service, but which is $3,100 a month. In high school, you feel like you're almost like a bajillion.
A king. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was so that was the first business that I had, was basically like calling people and waking them up to get out of bed.
So it was $100 monthly, not $100 per occurrence?
Yeah, $100 monthly. I probably could have optimized on pricing. I could have added an upsell, but yeah, it was just $100 flat a month, and I would give them a call and wake them up.
That's awesome. Yeah, $3,000 a month in high school. I don't think I was quite making that much, but I feel like I was close waiting tables. I was probably making like $2,000 a month, and even that, yeah, maybe like 500 a week or something. Even that, I felt like I was just like me and my buddies would, because a couple of my friends worked at country clubs and they were also servers. So when we were like 17, we would skip school and go like have lunch at country clubs in in the Villages, Florida, like kind of near where our high school is, because there's all those country clubs there. And we were, like when you're making $2,000 a month and you live with your parents, and like I think my only bill at the time, like I paid cash like a couple grand for my Civic that I had, so that was paid off, and then like my car insurance. But other than that, like the $2,000 a month was just like profit, it was like spending money. So it was the life.
Yeah, which is like such a disappointment then, like once you actually like start working and you get your paycheck, you're like, hey, I'm making 30 grand or 40 grand, and it sounds like so much money, and then taxes come out and you pay your rent and you pay your utilities, you're like, I have no money. But yeah, when you're in high school, you're really rolling at those levels.
What are taxes, Morgan? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I was waiting tables, man. So you know how that is. I think
it's a cash game, and especially when you're 16, right? I think probably statute of limitations, you're good at this point.
That's true. Yeah, I was wondering, I'm like, should I watch my words? But yeah, I think what can they go back 7 years? So I think I'm good. But yeah, I mean, obviously it wasn't crazy, and I didn't make too much money back then. But if we would make, and this is, probably no secret to the IRS, if they wanted to increase revenue, if they just went after the service industry, they probably would increase a lot of revenue. But yeah, if I made, I don't know, $100 in a night, you probably claim 50. That's whatever we would do, because you would just, credit card tips would get claimed automatically, and then cash would, you just not claim it at all because it's cash. So that's kind of the rule.
I would imagine too, it's probably a lot different now. Like almost everyone pays with a credit card. Like there's probably very few cash, you know, cash buyers in the restaurant game.
The IRS probably appreciates that. But
Yeah.
so the restaurant, you're right, but strip club and stuff like that. But Bob Evans, by the way, is, as you probably know, like a lower price point breakfast spot. So I think expensive restaurants, like high end, it's probably all credit card, but people would always leave, like a two top would leave $5. So in that market, especially because it's mostly older people that like cash, there probably still is a lot of cash in those like cheap breakfast places.
Right.
But for high end dining, you're probably right.
Yeah.
So anyway, what happened to that business? What did you spend all your money on too back in that day when you were
well,
rolling in the cash?
Yeah, so it actually was, I ran it through, I went to college, so I ran it from about 15 to 22, so 7 years. And when I went to college, I actually hired a friend of mine and did a deal with him where I paid him, I think, like $1,000 a month for him to wake up every day, and then he would just call me if it happened, and then I would call the client. So like I was always like the client-facing guy, but it kept me from having to be the one waking up every day. So then it, you know, turned into, I made a little bit less money, but you know, got the leverage of having someone else, you know, working with me, and that was pretty cool, kind of a lesson. But I actually saved all my money. This is an interesting story. So saved all my money, and I got married at a really young age. So Melanie and I, we started dating in college, and we actually got engaged when I was 21. But I actually spent all the money that I had made and had left like on a ring. And it's kind of funny because my dad, like when I told him like, hey, I'm going to ask Melanie to marry me and I'm going to buy this kind of, you know, crazy ring. You know, he was like, you know, I really think you should put that money in Apple. And this was in 2005. So, you know, he's like, put the money in Apple, wait a couple years, and then, you know, you'll probably have enough money to buy the ring, plus still have some Apple. And of course, you know, like I just went all in on the ring. But we joke a lot, like, which, you know, Melanie says like, hey, best trade you ever made. But he'll, every now and then he'll be like, hey, you know, if you'd put this in Apple in 2005, it'd be worth, you know, which is just crazy. Like it'd be a crazy number right now.
How much would it be? What's that number, Morgan? How much Apple stock would it be?
I'd have to go back and look. It would probably be like 300 to 500,000, something like that. But again, that's assuming like I would have actually held it, you know, this long. I probably would have made like, you know, $1,000 and thought I was a genius and sold it all. But yeah, he likes to remind me of the, you know, absolute best case if I had listened to him.
Yeah, you know, if you would have put it all in Bitcoin, you'd be a trillionaire. So,
yeah, that's right.
Imagine in that time before, right? Bitcoin didn't even come out till like what, 2009 or 2010 or something.
Yeah, so I think the play probably would have been to, you know, like put it in Apple, sell Apple,
and
roll it
2010.
into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You know, and just then sell Bitcoin, roll it into Tesla, and we'd probably be doing this interview on a jet somewhere.
Yeah, it is crazy that people actually bought Bitcoin. I know we were texting about Bitcoin like over the weekend, but I bought Bitcoin. There were people that when I bought it in 2017, which is 4 years ago now, January of 2017. So it's almost exactly 4 years. I bought them I bought 4 Bitcoin at about 2,500 a piece. It was like, I spent like 10 grand and I got like 3.9 Bitcoin. So it was like 2,600 ish. And there were people that were around me at that time. They're like, wow, I can't believe you're paying that much for it. They're like, thought I was getting ripped off. They're like, oh, you really got screwed.
Yeah, like you missed the boat.
Yeah, like not that they didn't think it could rise, but they were just like shocked it went to like 2 grand because it was in the hundreds. You know, it was in obviously the single digits, and then it was in the hundreds for quite a while. If you look at the history, which I know some people that bought some in the hundreds. I don't know how much they have left, and then now it's spiked to, you know, it's like 33,000 right now per coin, and I don't have quite all of them left, but I have most of what I purchased left. So I'm not a genius at all. It's complete luck.
Definitely a good return. You know, it's funny. We have a guy, you know him. He works with us, Paul, and we joke with Paul that he's like the crypto mush. because during that last run up when it ran to like 20K, I think he started buying it like up at like 18 or 19, and then it just immediately like plummeted. And on this most recent one, he actually just moved. He moved from Florida to Pennsylvania, and so he had some Bitcoin and he sold some when he went to buy his house, and like within a week it was up by like 20 or 30%. So we've just been joking. We'll, like Paul, let us know like when you buy back in, and we'll know to get out. But it's right. It's funny, like stuff like that. Like everybody becomes an expert, and it's like, oh yeah, I've bought Bitcoin, and I would like I knew this was going to happen. And someone told me once they had a friend who was really wealthy, just just beyond wealthy, and he asked him. He said, look, like what do people who are like really wealthy, like what do they do with their money? And he said, well, I buy stocks, I buy bonds, I buy gold, I buy real estate. I buy this and this and this, and then I only talk about like what went up, basically, and I think it's just like human nature of like you want to be, like nobody ever tells you like, hey, I bought, this stock that went to zero. It's like, oh yeah, I bought Amazon, and they might have like nine losers in their portfolio too, but we just like to, I think as a society, like talk about our winners.
Yeah, well, I can actually tell you a big loser story, Morgan, that I don't even think you know about me, but you're about to. I think you could find this really interesting, and listeners may find this really interesting. When I was 19 years old, I got a job at a Better restaurant in Ocala. So I went, probably like doubled my income, right? So I was doing really well, mostly, tax friendly, I'll say, but
one of those tax-free restaurants as well.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit. And business deductions on the nonprofit, like all above board. And I started buying penny stocks. So there was this site I started going to that would just like put these tips for penny stocks. And I started buying this company. It was called Left Behind Games. There was like Left Behind Christian books. I don't know if you remember those from back in the day.
Yep.
So there was a company that got the licensing rights and started making Left Behind branded video games. And I was like, I can like get behind this. Like I grew up kind of religious. I'm not really religious now, but I like was around that world, and I'm like, this is a smart niche, like Christian video games. Like no one's capitalizing on that. So I may have had like 30,000 saved up. I think I put $5,000 initially into it, and it like grew to 10 grand. I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to get rich. I'm never going to have to work again. So I think I put like probably like 20 grand of my total 30 grand at the time in this. It was a fraction of a penny. It wasn't even a full penny. It's one of those fraction of a penny stocks.
Yeah.
And then they like got a deal with Walmart, and I'm just like, I went to Walmart. I remember it. I'm like, oh my God, I see the actual game. And I had so many shares of this company, like millions of shares, because it was a fraction of a penny. I'm like, if this thing just gets to $1, I'm never have to work again, And then it rose. Like I remember at one time my portfolio was like up to like 60 or 70 grand, but I didn't want to sell. I'm like, dude, I'm riding this thing. And then just like all of a sudden out of nowhere, it just completely tanked. The CEO, like I saw some article, he just like stole a bunch of money from the company, and the company just folded. So my shares just like disappeared on E-Trade. So that was it. Like my 20K investment, and at the height it was worth, maybe not quite 100, but it was inching up towards it. And I'm like, I'm set. I'm like, my family's taken care of, like for the future. And then it just tanked. And I think out of outstanding shares, I probably owned like at least 1% of the company. Like it was wild, of this Christian video game company. And I never saw any money from that again, and the company just folded.
Wild. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's a crazy story. But, it's interesting. I think, and it's kind of intuitive after you think about it, but, like, I think a lot of people go in with stuff like that, and they're, like, either, like I don't want to sell, or they sell all of it. And it's like, you could have sold, like, a third of it and still kept, like, kind of like your Bitcoin. I think, like, you did that with your Bitcoin, right? Like, you had 4, and it went up a good bit, and you sold some of it. So it's like now, even if if Bitcoin goes to 0, you probably made money on it. But I think a lot of times people are just either like all in or all out.
Yeah, looking back at it, that's from that experience. Is I treated the Bitcoin investment as a similar thing. I'm like, I'm not planning to ever see this money again. And if I get a win out of it, great.
Yep.
But I viewed it as kind of the same thing. And yeah, once it got back to my initial investment, I cashed out. That's why I have like around 3 Bitcoin right now. But yeah, I got my initial investment back. And if I would have done that back in the day, that probably would have been a smart move. But I didn't. And sometimes it takes those. That was like 70% of my net worth.
Yeah.
Which is probably not what a financial advisor would recommend putting into penny stocks. But
oh, you're probably like, two steps away from just being the CEO of the company at that, with that many shares.
I probably could have just went into board meetings.
I bet you could have, gotten a board seat or something like that.
Yeah, I could have walked in like I own the place.
Yeah.
I was like, I own 1% of this. I literally, when I saw the game in Walmart, I'm just like, and it was selling for like $10. I'm like, dude, everyone that sells, that's like a penny for me. Like I'm gonna get rich. Nah, but I treated crypto as like penny. I feel like all these altcoins are basically penny stocks. Like, the market better than me, but that's kind of what I kind of feel like they are.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of people like equate it to like in 2000, all the .com companies where like just if you put like a .com behind your name, like your stock would go up. And, obviously like there were some major winners that came out of that, but there also was, so many of them like pets.com and others that just totally went bust. And so I think, anything like that, like, it's like, yeah, there's going to be these crazy stories, but like 90% of them are going, at some point probably going to zero.
For sure. Did you just exit out of those windows I heard making noises?
Yeah, I was hearing all these, getting emails, so I was like, let me X out of this.
We appreciate, me and my listeners, we appreciate us.
Yeah.
All three of us, we appreciate that.
Right.
So how you're also working with my best friend from high school works with you now. How is he doing? I'm sure he'll listen to this episode now.
He's on the board. So Mike joined one of our divisions on the sales team. And Jeffrey, the guy that hired him and trained him, said he really likes Mike. He said he's like working really hard. I think he had a sale like within his first 3 or 4 days. And so I sent him a Slack and just told him, like congratulations, and was excited to have him on the team. So I haven't had a combo with him yet, but we're definitely excited to have Mike on.
Yeah, I know he's been working hard, and I think he'll continue to do really good. If you have any best friends from high school you want us to consider hiring, just
I owe you one. So.
Yeah. If you any best friends from high school, just let us know. Mike and I actually have a little daily text thing we started where we text each other 3 things that we're grateful for, 3 accomplishments, 3 affirmations, and 3 goals. So we've been texting each other that every day.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Just like a little good positive way to start your day.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike is I think I was like, Mike, you better be their top salesperson by the end of the year, or we can't be friends anymore. So
that's right. It's gonna make you look bad.
So what do you? I saw, and this is what's interesting. Like for people that have listened to my shows, like I have everybody. There's like a little form we have people fill out for multiple reasons. It's like their contact info because we'll share their company name and anything they want to promote in the show notes. But also sometimes I ask the question, 3 interesting things about you, and there's one on like topics you'd want to discuss. And sometimes I read off that, sometimes I don't. It all depends on just how the conversation's going. But one thing, but I'll always I'll look at it pre-show and just see what I'm getting myself into with my guest. But one thing that you put in there that I wanted to bring up is you said one thing you wanted to talk about, or that was interesting about you, was that you're really okay at deal making.
Mm-hmm.
Just being okay. So what does that mean to be okay at deal making?
Yeah. So a couple years ago, like I said, when we decided to kind of merge from the agency model to going into more of a publishing model, I kind of set out, and it sort of was like an internal joke, but it's like, I want to be like the world's most okay-ish deal maker. And you get this, like anybody that's in business development, there's different, there's kind of different types of people. There's some people who are very hard to deal with. There's some people who kind of take the mentality of let me super lowball you, and then we'll work our way up. and then other people who are like, like just like, hey, let's find a good deal term and kind of get moving. And so when I say like okay-ish, not in the sense of like just making okay deals or making deals with everybody, but just really making sure that like every deal kind of that you make, that it's not like the world's best deal like in your favor. It's definitely not like the worst deal in your favor, but kind of like a way of like not being like too greedy in your dealings, because sort of like if you stack the deal like too much in your favor, I think a lot of times what happens is that like you get going down the road and then one side realizes like, hey, this isn't that great of a deal. And then there starts to be like animosity, or you have to like, spend a lot of times like reworking things and vice versa. But a lot of the deals that we've done, and I think like even the stuff that we've done, it's usually been over like one or two conversations. I think like we're both pretty fair people. And so it's just kind of like, hey, here's here's where I'm at. This is what, like what makes sense. And, there might be like a little back and forth, but it's pretty much like a one or two phone call, type thing. And that's not to say that if something is, if something's difficult, just not to do it, but there's so much benefit in being able to kind of like get through negotiations quickly and get the deal done and start like, actually like making money rather than like going back and forth. Because usually what happens if you start to go back and forth too much, like one side just loses interest, and then it's like you move on to something else. And so that was kind of my goal of trying to be the world's most okay-ish deal maker from that kind of like frame of mind.
No, that's interesting, and I can definitely see that from doing like having conversations. I feel like everything we've ever negotiated has been pretty simple and straightforward, and we can typically one or two conversations, it's over with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate that. What caused you to be that way? Were there deals that went bad, or did you learn this from somebody? Like where?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not a very confrontational person anyway, and I'm usually pretty like I'm also like I'll move pretty quickly. Like once I decide to do something, I'll just be like, all right, this is what we're doing, and like let's do it. Or like if we're gonna stop something, like hey, this didn't work, like that's okay. We'll just just move on. And so I think for me, like I really value like it's almost like just kind of like lead with almost your best offer and like what works, and then if it doesn't work for the other side, like you don't waste your time going back and forth. And so I think a lot of that just like with my like disposition of not and it's interesting, I had one of my former partners, he was pretty much like the exact opposite, but like we got along great. Like he's just like a very hard-nosed guy, like kind of like negotiate every deal point. But like I learned a tremendous amount from him. But we would have some deals where it's like it got to a point where like we did a deal with someone like and it became uncomfortable because he was like almost not like sticking it to him in a bad way, but like he was very much like, no, this is it, and hammered it. And then it kind of ends and there's maybe some animosity. And I always kind of look at it like, hey, even if something doesn't work out, like if you just like lead with your best foot, foot forward, that there's probably an opportunity down the road that you can come back and something else might come up, and so that's kind of been my mindset with it.
Yeah, no, I respect that, and I feel like obviously you want to of course negotiate good deals. Like no one is for bad deals, but I've learned that over the year through mentors, through bad deal structures. Like when we had our business with Kevin Harrington, full transparency, we were 50-50, and Max and I at that point, like I was doing the business development. Kevin was bringing in some deals, but he was bringing in a lot of deal flow, but it wasn't necessarily the right deals that we wanted, which is, a big challenge that we had. That was probably the biggest disagreement we had, was he would actually bring in deals that we didn't want to take on. Not that he wasn't bringing in deals, because he was bringing in a shit ton of deals. And Max was like overseeing the team, and I was bringing in the right deals, and we were 50-50 owners. And it got to a point where, yeah, like if he was 20%, we'd probably still be partners with him.
Right.
But it's just like when you're 50-50, and we ended amicably, and like we're still friends and stuff. We didn't like hate each other after. It was definitely some child drama with some stuff going on at some level, but just we ended amicably. But I think, and I learned Dave, from Dave with Comma, and he's obviously a successful entrepreneur and a lot of other things. he'll even share. He's just like, if I'm an advisor and if I'm just like a high level position, he's like, I don't want more than like a small percentage of equity. Like if he won't, he's told me multiple times, he's like I don't want any more than 10% of a company if I'm only going to be an advisor or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Because I think that animosity can build, and even business people, like, we try to be as rational as possible. Like, what's weird about business equity is it doesn't mean that much until the business is sold, right? Like, right. But there's something about like our egos get involved, and we just like really care about that equity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, or making money, like, and I think that's probably where a lot of people end up in that situation where, like, and Dave, I'm sure could exploit it, because like people are bringing him in probably A, to advise them, and B, because, as like an investment, partner. And so like when someone just has like, an idea, or like they really need that money, they're like, oh yeah, well, yeah, of course I'll give this up or give up this huge chunk. But then like once they get past that, like, kind of breathing room space, they start thinking about it, and they're like, well, like I'm the one doing, like I'm the one doing all this work, or I'm, and then they start to rationalize against, since like, what is he doing and what is he making? And, it's just like, if you kind of, set it on fair terms from the beginning, then it's just all conversations of, how to move forward. Or I think if you have a pivot in the business that like necessitates it, then it's like you have, you have that combo, and I think it's a pretty straightforward combo that either like you're both aligned or you're not. Yeah,
for sure. And it's interesting, you watch, which I haven't watched Shark Tank in a while, but I used to be like religiously addicted to that show. The infatuation these startup founders have with equity just always drove me insane, because most of these businesses are never going to sell. Like, it's a good problem to have. Like, assuming we sell, like, our Proud Patriots business or our group of businesses, like, I would love to be like, you know what? We just sold this for all this money. Next time, let's be a little bit more protecting of the equity. Like, that's a good problem to have. But, like, how many of these businesses actually sold on Shark Tank? It's probably under 10%, So it is interesting how so many of these, and I've been there, like, I still can get that way to an extent, but it's interesting. Why do you think we value equity so much when in all actuality it's like maybe not as important as so many people?
Yeah, I don't know. I think part of it is having a, like, and it's hard to say, like, as a, like, as a business owner, like, that's seen the other side of that, like, you're kind of like, hey, like, equity's not that important or whatever. But I think for a lot of people, it's a bit of like there's the stability, part of like, hey, I'm part of this, and knowing like, hey, if we sell at this point, that that there's something there. But I think the control factor is another one too. Like, I think a lot of, like, you look at Shark Tank, and a lot of those guys are like, well, hey, like, I'm the one behind the business, or I'm the business. And I think one of the big things is pretty much for any business, like, everybody's replaceable at some point. And so I think that's a hard thing to kind of understand. I know, like, for our business, like, if something happened to me, like, it's not like our entire business would fold. Like, there's enough stuff there and people, like,
it might be more successful.
Probably,
probably
more successful. But like, there's retire tomorrow.
Yeah.
And see how that goes. But I think that like, we just, in human nature, like, we kind of like overvalue ourselves a little bit of what that would be.
Yeah, I agree. Equity is important. Like, I don't want to, like, we shouldn't not have equity, but there's those like conversations where like, I can't give up a point more than 20%.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean you can't give up more than 20%? I get the control thing. But like, especially if the business is already doing millions in revenue, that's also another one thing too. But yeah, when it's just like these little shit startup companies, it's just like, dude, just get over yourself.
Just get the money. Like, start making money and be happy. But someone told, I had a friend who went on Shark Tank, and he said, like, a vast majority of the deals that they agree to actually don't go through. And
that's true.
That like both sides have an out, after, like, even if they agree to a deal, like, both sides have an out, because they'll have sometimes where either it just doesn't go through because of due diligence, but But B, like they might make a deal and then they start thinking about like, I really wish I hadn't made that deal, or, like walk it back. And I think that's, kind of an interesting thing.
No, that's true. I know a handful of people that have been on Shark Tank, and I think I know 4, and 2 of them did a deal. Mm-hmm. All of them did a deal on the show, and only 2 of them actually did the deal post-show. So, because obviously they want to do a deal on the show. From what Kevin told me, the producers really, really push doing deals on camera because that's more exciting. Like the show would be really boring to watch if just like there were 4 pitches and it was like all rejections. Like, could you imagine? And everybody like, why do we even watch this show? So, but what I also, I was on West Texas Investors Club. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that.
Did you watch that episode with me?
I did, and I missed it.
Man, what a great business partner. I'm writing this down. Didn't watch the episode. No, I'm just kidding. Send me your highlight, your highlight reel of just life in general, probably from like birth to today. Yeah. I
weekend doing that.
Do you have the new Peacock app, the new NBC app?
No.
It's on Peacock.
It's on there?
Yeah, so download Peacock and you can watch me on West Texas Investors Club. But West Texas Investors Club, I closed the deal with them on air. The biggest deal on the whole 2 seasons of the show is $1 million deal. And they were not serious about getting a deal done after.
Yeah.
I felt scammed. Like it was just reality TV. I can't speak for Shark Tank. Those are more legitimate investors, and I think Shark Tank too many bad things would happen but West Texas Investors Club was kind of a random little CNBC show, and I don't know. They did not seem serious to do a deal. They just kept requesting all these reports and like projections, and it's like, dude, it was supposed to be $1 million loan for buying a bunch of trucks. Because I'm like, if we purchase these
that's
trucks,
equipment heavy, right? Like pretty capital intensive,
and like worst case, the deal goes bad, they own the trucks. Like it's a pretty low risk deal for them. I'm like, because if I could buy $1 million worth at a time, our margins would go and they'll move those FedEx trucks and stuff. Like whether we sell them or not, people are going to buy them. It's a commercial truck. So that's all we were looking to do with the cash. And I was like, what do we need all this stuff for? Yeah. And they did not seem serious to do a deal. So we closed a handshake deal on the show, and we never actually did a deal. And then I ran into, so one of them is Matthew McConaughey's cousin, Rooster McConaughey. And I actually ran into him last time I was in Fort Worth, just randomly. He was in the same hotel as me. Huh. And he's like, "You're the Florida food truck guy."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we were going to try to get a drink or something, but it just never happened. But because I was there for a mastermind. But anyhow, now we know. Shark Tank, great TV. Right. I don't know if real deals are going on, though. They do have, one of my buddies that went on said after the pitch, because people have had, I can't remember if somebody killed themselves or somebody tried to kill themselves or something, but the sharks were really mean to them and said, like, your business is the worst idea we've ever heard. And it was just, like, really detrimental, like, mentally or something to them. So they have, like, a psychotherapist on staff now, and you have to spend, like, an hour with them or something post-pitch, like everybody does now.
Yeah. I could see that. I mean, like you're on TV and regardless of, and it's easy when you're watching it, like to be like, oh, that's a dumb idea, or how did they even get on the show or whatever. But like for that person, like that's like their business or their dream and everything, like that they put into it to go on TV and get, like berated or humiliated, like that would be a very difficult thing, emotionally. So, and I'm sure they toned it down. And two, I think like society's changed a lot, right? Like with like norms of, like what you say to people and how you treat people. Like I think that's a lot, probably more in the forefront now too.
For sure. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of dumb ideas, especially in the early seasons. Like that's what, like Kevin Harrington would tell me. Like now the show is super popular, and it has been, but there's like 10 seasons now. Season 1, season 2. Like imagine season 1. It's Shark. No one knows what Shark Tank is. They have to cast all the pitches before the show even airs. So it's like the quality of businesses they were getting were really, really bad.
Right.
So but yeah, if somebody spends 5 years and it's their life dream and they put all their life savings and borrowed money from their grandma and they're just get on there and they're just like, this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
Yeah. Yeah, and too, if you tell everyone, all your friends and your family, like, hey, I'm on Shark Tank tonight, and it's kind of like the NFL draft videos. Like when a guy doesn't get drafted, they'll show like, he's there in his, like in the room or the party, and all his family's around, and he doesn't get the call or whatever. It's just, like I think disappointment's always hard, and I'm sure adding the public light to it makes it even worse.
Yeah, I mean, what was silly too, and this was what just frustrated me about like the again, super grateful. From what I know, the investors are good guys on West Texas Investors Club. They wouldn't allow us to spend too much one-on-one time because they wanted everything to be on camera, all interactions. So, but they just like kept trying to plant stuff the whole time. They didn't tell us who the investors were, and it was like 5 days worth of taping. There was like a pitch, the initial pitch, and then there was like a couple days of like random dumb activities, and then there was like the final day, and then they like put it all into one like 20-minute segment on the show. And like middle of the way through, I was like, I'm Googling these guys, like I don't know like why I would want to give like equity in my company. I'm like, I don't know what value they're gonna bring. Like I don't know who these people are, because they were like no names,
Yeah.
Like it's not like they're celebrities at that point.
How long was the like time in front of them? So I know you had like the prep work, but like how long were you actually like pitching to the actual guys?
Well, their show concept was actually kind of cool. So there was like, I was probably in front of them like 20 minutes the initial pitch, and then maybe like 20 minutes the final pitch, but then they cut tons of it. And then there were like activities the middle days. So part of the show was, the whole show premise was, we don't just invest in businesses, we want to invest in the people and like get to know them. And if it's somebody cool and somebody we like, that's who we want to work with. So it was actually like a good premise. And they seemed pretty friendly and pretty nice. And they would just make like little quirks and little jokes for TV. But so I probably spent a few hours total with them. I went to their place of business. One was like a steel pipe manufacturer or something, and I mean massive business, like nothing online or whatever, but just huge like commercial contracts. I mean, just massive business, right? And we'd walk around with them there, but they would I asked the producers, I'm like, I looked these people up on like online, and I don't know where they how they can help my business. Like, why would I give equity away? I don't know like what value you're gonna bring. I was like, right. Let me just and then they planted that and basically like told the two investors that I was like stalking them. So like on camera, they just like plant me with like, you're looking up my address so you can see where my children sleep at night. That's what they asked me on camera. And that never made it to the show, fortunately. But this stupid stuff like that, they were just trying to plant and start drama.
Like gotcha stuff. Yeah.
I'm like, they're like, oh, you're trying to see where my kids sleep at night? Like, legit, that's what was asked of me. On camera.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm trying to see, like, CNBC, I think, got the final say. So they're probably like, this is stupid. But yeah, the producers, I don't know, it's just a bunch of games. Right. I didn't like it. So, quick transition here, Morgan. Enough about all this Shark Tank talk. The moral, though, the big takeaway, just find good people you like working with or that you can trust, and work hard, and you can be successful in business.
Right.
And do bad deals. Do okay deals.
That's right. Do okay deals. Yeah.
Do okay deals, and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
So what motivates you at this point in your life, Morgan? Because I know your business is doing well. You have a young family, and that that seems to be going pretty well. What gets you out of bed in the mornings?
Yeah, I really enjoy. I mean, like I enjoy business, and I think there's definitely some days I think like as a business owner, you're dealing with stuff where you're like, gosh, such a grind, or such a like things that you don't want to deal with. But for the most part, like I really enjoy like the partnerships that we have. I think I tend to get like more excited or more fulfillment out of the new stuff. Like when we launch something like brand new, or like just like stuff with like the new, like ad channel that we're running stuff on, or network, like that's like a lot more exciting than like, hey, we spent this much on Google, like today. Like maybe it's like, you make 10 times more money here, but like the exciting thing's kind of like that new business opportunity. And so I always like to learn, and I think to pivot and try new things is really what I get like a lot of fulfillment. And then also just like working with good people. Like I think like the partnerships that we have and the team that we have like at our company, it's really like obviously like, people, it's a job and you do it, to make money. But I think like we've got so many people who are just like really devoted to like wanting to do a good job and like wanting to have a good product and have like a good experience and in a good, in a good business environment. And so that's really, I think, rewarding for me, from a business standpoint. And then obviously, like there's nice things that go along with that of doing well and being able to provide for your family or like do fun stuff. With like my girls are 9 and 4, and getting to do fun stuff with them. And I'm pretty, I work a lot. Like I think everybody does, like you're always connected, but like I'm usually home for dinner every night, and like I take my daughter to school every morning, and get to spend a good bit of time with them too. So it's a good balance.
Yeah, for sure. I enjoy the business side too, and yeah, we're not allowed to talk about the ad channel, so good call. We're being
That's
secret.
right. Yeah, I censored it.
Our
Yeah.
secret way we're scaling our ecom businesses right now. The most amazing little ad platform for us right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell anybody that we've spent so much money with MySpace over the past, several months.
Yeah. Yeah, MySpace ads are crushing. We probably could own 10% of the company with what we've spent
Right.
on this other secret ad platform. So, yeah, I'm grateful. We're having a lot of success there. So yeah, a lot of good things going with our business. It's just exciting. Like the call we had today, there's just so many massive opportunities, and it's really cool. Like what we can do with, like the internet, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I think that's a hard thing. And it's something I struggle with is really of being able to kind of like say no rather than like, okay, let me find a way to make this work. And I think this is the downside of kind of like the okayish deal making, is really like the opportunity cost of like where you're spending your time of looking at that. I think that's an area where you're a lot stronger than I am of just kind of like being like, well, we need to weigh this against this and this, where like I'm kind of like, hey, this, like, yeah, we could do this, like, or let's find a way to do this. But it's like by doing that, we might not have like the focus or energy to go after this thing that could be like 10 or 20 times bigger. So I think that's one downside. It's like, you have like a world of opportunities, but it's really about picking that right, like that right one to put your time and focus into.
Yeah, for sure. Shiny object syndrome. I mean, that's the trickiest thing as an entrepreneur is we're all smart and we're connected and we could make so many things work, but it's like, what thing can we make work the most?
Right.
It's just like we could launch 10 different things that we could make work right now, but it's like, which one is the biggest opportunity,
Right.
/ which one will we get most excited about, / which one do we have the team already to efficiently
do it and like hit the ground.
Yeah.
Ground running. Yeah.
For sure. But I think we're finding that good balance right now. I think really just focusing on that conservative patriot niche, I think is big for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, who else is good at that is, Christopher. I think like he's pretty good about like, and maybe he's a little bit more like operationally minded. So, but like he's good at like looking at that and being like, it's just not worth the time right now. Like, and he'll pretty much just like shut it down. But I think, it's an important trait. Like a lot of successful people, it's like, I know a lot of like really smart people that just try to do, like 30 or 40 different things. And then it's like, they don't do any of it well, when like execution is such a big part of success.
I agree. So anyway, you want to start a new business right now?
Yeah.
No, just
Yeah,
kidding.
that's right.
No, I agree completely. It's really, I don't know what it is. Like I'll have to like Let me talk to my therapist about that, actually. I've never talked like that type of business about shiny object syndrome,
Yeah.
but I feel like there has to be, because art, you know what it could be, Morgan? Because like we're both kind of like idea guys, like, and we talked about earlier, like being in our genius, like it feels so good, right? It's almost like a high to like come up with a new business concept that could be big.
Yeah.
It's almost like a drug. Like I've never done heroin, but I imagine it would feel almost as good as when you just like present an idea and like hit the ground running and it's doing successful. Like what's better, that feeling? Like now we kind of take it for granted, but like the business is doing some pretty nice revenue. But like the first 10K day we had, wasn't that like more exciting
Right.
than anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's like it's like an addiction, you know? It's like I started this from nothing and now it's doing well.
Right.
What do you
Now
think?
there's something there.
What do you think that's what it is? Why do you think we're so addicted to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's like you just get attracted like to new stuff, or like the excitement of something new. I'd be curious to hear what they say about it. Like, I mean, that'd be probably an interesting podcast in itself of what's the root cause of it, like from a psychological standpoint of, because I think if you ask people, like, they know, you're like, hey, are you better off, focusing on this and doing this, but I just think it's like how you're wired. It's like you're probably wired with a disposition either towards that or the other way, where you're much more into the like processes and optimization and like here's like my kind of like more of an engineer type mindset that really like just builds this like operational machine that's like lean and mean and going forward. But it'd be an interesting question to see like what's the driver of that. Like excitement around the newness, because it definitely is exciting. Like it's a really cool thing when something new launches.
For sure. I'm excited to dive into that. There's just, it's such an exciting feeling. Like, I think you can execute it. Like Kevin, who we were just talking about, is involved in a bunch of deals. And if you're just an advisor, I think being involved in 10 or 15 projects is realistic, because there's actually probably some synergies between those brands too. There could be benefits in being involved in multiple brands, but like from an operational standpoint, it's like you really can only be involved in like one or two,
Yeah.
But like beyond that, it's just operationally you can't be involved in too many things. It's just impossible. But yeah, just an advisor, like, hey, I'm gonna hop on a weekly strategy call and make connections and stuff. It's like a bunch of those are fine. So
yeah,
what,
it's interesting. Like you say that, like we learned that a lot with our business. Like on the financial side, we've got several partnerships and brands there, and we've and at times we've thought like, hey, having this like kind of like centralized team that can go here and here. It's like you have a lot of like economies of scale, and like customer service is customer service. So if you have one customer service team working these like 8 different businesses, like you get all these benefits. But really, like each time, like we keep finding, like if you just like more the separation and like dedicated team and focus just yields even more. And so it's like it might like on paper be more expensive to have that, but just like having people that are like waking up every day like just thinking about like how to drive that like particular like business unit forward, and then providing like enough opportunity within that unit for them to still have the fulfillment and upside of it. It's just has been much better. But I think certain roles, like there's definitely like synergies to say, hey, we can like cross promote this, or we can like put 1 + 1 and get a yield here. But that's it's a good point. Like of I think that like 1 to 2 thing of full-time focus is probably about the cap.
For sure. And I think if you're gonna expand, and we're learning that with our business right now, but from experience too, we're gonna create similar. Like if we launch something in the couple spaces we're exploring right now, there's like so much overlap where it's almost the same thing we're already doing.
Right.
So it's like it's another brand, but it's kind of like an extension of what we're already doing, which is good. But yeah, I mean, we're just learning day by day, trying to figure this all out. That's the thing I've learned too in business. Like for people listening that like are successful or just getting started or whatever, like No one fucking knows what they're doing. I mean, we're just figuring it out
Right.
as we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Morgan
And I
knows
think,
everything. We go to
I
him for info, but for on our like my side and Christopher's side, we don't know anything, So
right. But I think too, like the approach of like, hiring a team to do that, it's like you said, it's like similar areas. So like, like you're like blocking and tackling the same things, but like you got to have someone there. And which is why Christopher's, looking to hire so many people right now of being able to like kind of like take that on. And he's already built out like the process and the things that the people like kind of like need as a game plan for success, but you got to have that person executing it.
totally, I'm like Christopher. Let's 3x the revenues, but not add any more people. Why can't you make that happen? Stop trying. I
Right.
want to 3x the revenues, but keep the
Yeah.
expenses flat.
Yeah.
Why can't you make that happen? Why is it such a hard
Yeah,
thing to
just
accomplish? Come
work
on,
24
dude.
hours a day and, don't
Yeah.
have a social life. Like, what's the problem?
We just want our whole team to just, yeah, no, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, we're in a nice place and
Hmm.
we're going to be able to, I mean, that's what's good about, like, I, I have my own opinion on every political topic, right? Like, I lean conservative on a lot of things. I leave very far left on other things. Like, I don't identify as like one thing, but I'm starting to like fall in love with this business more and more because we're providing jobs in America, like good jobs,
Hmm.
right? We offer benefits to people where a lot of our products are American made. People love our products. I know we're going to explore partnering with different charitable organizations and stuff like that too. Like, it's actually really starting to grow on me. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to really like, we got into it for a financial opportunity, but it every day I like it a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a big thing, and we see this a lot on like the publishing, kind of like the financial publishing side, is people just, like you have to, in a way, like whatever your brand is or your, and again, this might not apply to everything, but I think like you have to sort of like pick your side and like lean into it. You can't be like all things to all people. It's like just focus on like what's the, like mission of this site or what's the product and like who's our customer and like let's really like serve them and give them what they want. Like like people don't want to hear like 8 different opinions either way or like a sign like it's why news became so popular once they became opinionated. You've got conservatives that watch Fox News, you have liberals that watch MSNBC, and it's two different messages being out, but it's like people are just drawn to something that like stands firm in what they believe.
No, for sure. I mean, and that's, I mean, I've given these products to people in person, and probably the same for you. Is like not every reaction. For those who don't know, we sell like patriotic and conservative leaning collectibles with the Proud Patriots brand. Like, people, like the smile that on these people's faces is like crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like, have you ever had anybody be like, these are stupid? Like, everybody I've ever given them to is like, oh my God, like these are so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And two, I usually, only give them out to people who lean a certain way, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I'd give a, bobblehead to one of my liberal friends.
They still may like it though.
Just because I know, yeah, they probably wouldn't appreciate it, but yeah, I think it's a cool thing, but we made that decision early on. We're like, do we want to have a Democratic store, a Republican store, like this, and like, no, let's just like focus on this, and then kind of like this is what this brand stands for, and it really started being successful after that point.
Yeah, for sure. Well, excited for a great 2021. I think this is going to be a good year for Proud Patriots and our new brands we're looking to explore. I think I'm excited to see where we are a year from today. I think it's going to be really cool to see where we continue to grow. I mean, a year, like where we were a year ago today, like could you imagine this is where we would be today? Like, I feel like this business is just like,
Oh yeah, totally different, just different business. Yeah.
we were losing money back then and now we're making money. So that's a big change.
Right. Yeah, that's a nice change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus new team members, new products. We bought lots of inventory of products. Just massive, just in 1 year. So, what will you look back? Let's just say It's a good question for you personally and professionally. Say January 1st of 2022. You're looking back on 2021. How would you classify 2021 as a successful year? What would have to happen for you this year to view it as a successful year?
Yeah, I think for us, like we had a lot of growth over like the last 3 years, and I think sometimes we'll have like company calls, and we usually do like a quarterly call for our company, and I'll always put this chart up where it's like this is what growth looks like, and it's like just the crazy like up and down, up and down chart. It's never like straight line easy growth, and so I think like we've had a lot of growing pains. I think like almost like outgrowing. Like our business outpaces the team and some frustrations with that. And then you like overcorrect. You say, okay, we're going to get all these processes in place, and the processes, it's like, this is just crazy. We're going back to like, just like come up with an idea and get a web page up tomorrow type of a mindset. But I think for me, like really just having, trying to have like more stability in what we do. I think, like I'm not really looking to do, like try to have 10 more partnerships or things like that, but just like really investing in the relationships that we have and seeing those businesses like continue to mature. I think that would be a successful thing. And I think whenever you end up in a situation where it's like, your partners, your team members, and your customers are happy, then usually like the money follows that. And I think that would be a view of business success.
That's awesome. What about personally? What would make 2021 a success for you?
Yeah, personally, with having a family and with my girls and my wife and stuff, it's always kind of like, like they ask like, like, Dad, what do you want for Christmas? And it's like the textbook answer is like, well, I really just like want you guys to be happy. And like that's really, really it for me personally. Like if my family's happy and, they're still at an age, like an innocent age where it's like, just like everything's right in the world. And so I think like as long as we kind of like can prolong that and, them, just getting through this year and continuing to like grow and progress and mature, I think that would be like it's not like a super exciting or like big idea type, like end up on the beach, like you and I have talked about, level of success for happiness. But I think that would be it. And I think with like, my youngest daughter would be a little bit of like, teaching her about like, how to overcome struggle when it happens. Like with the 4-year-old, it's just like, hey, we'll just make everything as great as we can. But like with our other daughter, now that she's getting a little bit older, it's kind of like, well, hey, like things don't always go your way. And like, this is what you do, like this is how you overcome, or this is, like when you have a bad day, this is how you get through it. And really trying to, get out of like, we're not in this fairy tale. But teaching her the right way to be able to deal with stuff as she gets older.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did your kids handle just like remote school / the whole COVID thing? How was that for you and your family?
Yeah, so for us, the younger one thought it was great because she could just like, hang out with us and we're like the coolest people in our life. Our 9-year-old is really at that stage where like friends are starting to become important. So she was having a hard time with it, of like not being able to see her friends, and then also like not really understanding like, well, hey, this is why you're home. This is the logic behind it. So, we did really what like any good parent would do and just went out and got a dog for her. So broke down, and my wife, we've got, like 2 cats. We had a dog already, and she's like, what if we get another dog, for Olivia, and she'll be excited about that. And I was like, we're not getting a dog. And then finally one day I got a text from Melanie, and she's like, hey, I got us a dog. Here's when you pick it up. And she got a French bulldog. So that afternoon I left work and picked it up. But it's like, that's pretty much how my vote counts in the house. But it's a great dog. And so that was how we dealt with it. But it's a hard, it's a hard thing for anybody. Like it's a hard thing for me. Like I don't want to, not travel and not go out to eat and not, do this, but then you have to balance kind of everything that you're hearing, and, you're around other people too. So you're a little bit, like responsible for that. And I think just the human nature, and it's probably why like America has such a hard time with it, of like, we really value our freedom. So it's kind of like, don't, that's fine if you want to do that, but don't tell me what to do. And I think it's interesting. I know you've had a couple of podcasts where you really like dug into kind of like COVID and everything, but I think like Florida's an interesting way that like Governor DeSantis has handled it, of keeping the economy open and sort of like, hey, you can still go out to eat, but like we're going to do things a little bit differently, rather than taking like like we're going to shut everything down approach. So like I'm grateful for that like we've been able to have a little bit of normalcy through this. And I know you've seen that with like your friends that came in town from other places, where they're like, wow, it's just great to like be around people again.
Yeah, we had our event and people were coming in from all over the country in December, and the energy was just so good. Like same for my New Year's party. Like I just like, and yeah, and for those that don't know, anybody that's probably listening to this knows this about me, but I don't hang out with any older people, where it's all young single people in my building. I mean, if I was hanging out with my grandma or something regularly, or living with like, I'd maybe have a different approach, but I definitely had it. I lost my taste and smell a few months back, which is like the strangest thing. If you never, like, you get congested and stuff. I will say it was very strange symptoms, but half the people in my building have probably had it at this point. Like, I don't know, like, we're social creatures. Like, it's hard for me, especially like I'm single. Like, I would rather, for me, take the whatever health risk, which like you and me and people younger than us have basically zero risk, right? So it's like, I'd rather take that quote unquote risk and get a cold for us than just put my whole self in isolation, and like, and I think that's what's happening. Like, if you look, government policy can only affect so much. Like, if you look at the numbers in California, they're just astronomical right now because no one cares anymore.
Right.
I think there were like 20,000 cases just in LA County like a couple days ago. Like, just in LA County, 20,000 cases. Like, that's insane. And I think it's just, California was like low cases for a while, and then I just think with all the hypocrisy from like the governor and Pelosi, and then with just people just getting tired of sitting around not living their life. I mean, people just have house parties now instead. I mean, that seems to be what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm grateful we're in Florida too, and yeah, we're gonna buy maybe neighboring beach houses. So we'll see.
That's right. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Probably maybe early 2022 goal. We'll have a big 2021 and then put that on the 2022 board.
If we both get one, are we gonna have a party at both and just like go back and forth and maybe build a tunnel under the ground so we can travel?
Yeah, I think there needs to be some secret tunnels. I've always wanted to have that, like a secret room in your house. Like, I think probably like every guy does. Like, you pull the bookcase back and opens up to some crazy game room or something like that, but
/ bomb shelter.
That's right. Yeah,
we actually should build a bomb shelter. That would be good. We could use that just in case.
Yeah, we can use it in some of the survival videos. That'd be good.
That actually would. We could open up our bomb shelter, and then we have all the survival items.
Sell a membership, like you get beach bunker.
How to build a bunker. That could be a great lead magnet.
Yeah.
How to build a bunker in any house if we're under $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
All right, last question. Okay. I heard you got free ices at your gas station. How does that work? How do you get free ices?
Yeah. So I'm like a beacon of health, obviously. Like, and you've gone out to eat with me. I have like 5-year-old taste buds where I get like chicken fingers and hamburgers and stuff like that. But I got in this routine when we moved here of like I'd like watch the Cubs game at night or watch some other sporting event. So it's like put my daughter to bed and run to the gas station. I'd get an icy. And I don't, if any of you guys have been to Jacksonville or the Ponte Vedra area, we have these gas stations called like Dailies and Gate, and they're like super nice gas stations. Like when we first moved here, I told my wife, I was like, I feel like I should like take you on a date to the gas station. And so I'd go like every night and I'd get ices and M&Ms. And I got to, just like talking to the guy there. So there's 2 or 3 guys where like now if they're working, it's like your money's no good here. So like I pay for the M&Ms because that's like inventory, but the ices they started comping me, and so it's probably like I'd say at least like 2 out of 3 times I go, I get the free icy. So I was joking with someone, I was like, some people get comped at casinos or hotels, but I get comped at gas stations. So that's kind of a big deal. But yeah, next time you're here, I'll have to take you and check out the icy quality. They've got like Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, Coke, cherry, like really, it's a high quality machine.
Mountain Dew. Probably a word of advice: never do a podcast after you eat a whole bunch of Taco Bell and Mountain Dew, which I got a gift card for Christmas, and I've been craving Taco Bell for months, and it makes you feel bad. Even though I like it, it just makes me feel like crap, so I don't eat it that much. But I just had it, and I had a Mountain Dew, and Mountain Dew Icy sounds fantastic. We'll have to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Can we, in our houses, do you just want to split one of those Icy machines?
Yeah, we can put that like halfway through the tunnel, maybe.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. Or we just each get one. Did you see Righteous Gemstones? Did you watch that on HBO yet?
I haven't seen that.
It's basically, it's like a comedy, but they're this wealthy church family. And one of their biggest donors is this chicken company. It's supposed to be like a Chick-fil-A thing, but they don't say Chick-fil-A. It's some other brand, I think. Yeah. And like some religious chicken company, and they give the youngest son a freestyle machine, so he puts it in his room, and his sister breaks it, and he gets really mad. But I don't know, it just made me think of that. He had a freestyle machine in his little house.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
But anywho, well, thanks for hopping on the show today, Morgan.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's great being here, and looking forward to a big year with you guys. Yeah, man, and we'll the baseball season I just saw was announced. It's going to open on normal schedule. So the Braves play the Cubs really close. I think in May, we play 3 games in Atlanta and then 3 games in Chicago within like a couple weeks. So we should go to both of those series. Yeah, let's do it. Sounds great. We'll make it happen. All right, Morgan. Well, thanks, Jeremy. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Openly Outspoken with Jeremy Adams. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player so you get updated when new episodes are live. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to support is to leave a 5-star review and share the podcast with people in your life that you feel would benefit from these types of discussions. Visit openlyoutspoken.com for additional details on the show. Find out how to connect with Jeremy on social media and learn more information about Jeremy's personal and business life. We'll see you next time.